We're each going to pull out 4 packs to start. We will go to our cards as we go through. All right, Cash, you grab 4.
I'll choose these 3 and this one.
All right. I got 1, 2, 3, 4, and I will pick out 4 for Muffy, who is on the camera. There you go, Muffy. All right. All right. We're going to open our packs, and then we'll go through what we drafted after we open our packs. All right, so we opened all our packs, we did our draft, we actually played our games as well, and this is what happened. So we drew some cards that we didn't use. I will mention Muffy kind of bailed on us, so we ended up, Dash and I ended up playing 11 matches. At this point, I won 6, he won 5, but it was very interesting, went back and forth. I won the first 3, and then Dash came all the way back up to the point where he was ahead 5-4, and then I won the last 2 to end up winning 6-5. So really went back and forth. Really interesting matchup. So some of the cards we actually didn't use, we got the Mythic Emergency Powers. No one really thought that this was going to work well in their deck, and no one did blue-white. We got Nika of the Old Ways. Dash could have probably used it in his deck. He did have green, and he had a splash of red, but he chose to not use it for good or for bad. But yeah, certainly a great pull. We had Benthic Biomancer, again a pretty good card, and no one used this guy. Now, Dash did have quite a bit of blue in his deck, but he chose not to use it.
Because I don't like the card.
Because he doesn't like the card for some reason. And then we had Deputy of Detention, which is, again, a really good card, and no one used that. So just thought I'd talk about those quickly, some of the cards we didn't use. Now, I will go into Dash's deck first, and some of the things of what it did. So one of the cards actually I didn't find was super effective for him was Scuttlegator. At times it was a big guy on the battlefield, but really getting to that 8 mana was really tough in this kind of format. So a lot of times it kind of sat in his hand and just kind of clogged him up. But it wasn't terrible. One of the really nice pulls we got in the draft was a foil Growth Spiral. So we did actually really well in the draft for value. Of the 12 packs we opened, we got some really sweet cards. The Growth Spiral, he ended up with 3 of them in his deck, which really helped his mana acceleration. Was a real valuable card tool. Card I didn't think was very good at all, but ended up being really valuable for him on my big creatures was Slimebind. So he pulled 2 of these in his draft, and it really killed my 6/6 and a 6/5 creature, and it made them really tiny. Surprisingly, Senate Courier was a pain in the butt too. That 4 toughness on it and the flying made it really hard for me to deal with. I had a lot of stuff that killed creatures power 4 or greater, or did 3 damage to creatures, and it kind of kept hitting me one at a time. Now, I don't think it was a game winner, but it was a difficult one to deal with. So a big part of Dash's deck was counter spells. You get 5 counter spells in the deck. Essence Capture was really good, and getting that +1/1 counter actually was sometimes good, sometimes bad, because he knocked a couple of his 3 toughness creatures up to 4, and sometimes that actually let me kill them. So he had Thought Collapse as well, which was quite good, and he also got a Frilled Mystic, and this one was probably the best of all of them. Obviously, getting a creature in this kind of format and the 2-for-1 was really good. So 2 games in particular, Root Snare ended up being the big killer. There was 2 games where I attacked him, and I kind of went it all out, had enough to kill him, and he ended up killing me because he was able to prevent all the combat damage. So I haven't played the Moment's Pieces or the what's the classic one, Tranquility, for a long time. Is Tranquility the right one? Anyways, but it ended up being very valuable. So a couple other big ones he got. He had Shark to Crab. I don't think it actually really played a huge role in any of our games. But it was certainly a good creature. I love actually the art on the creature with the hammerhead shark with the big teeth. He's pretty freaky looking.
Yeah.
So we pulled a Breeding Pool out of our 12 packs, which was, I believe it's the most valuable card in the set right now. So that was pretty cool. We also pulled a Hallowed Fountain. So we got the 2 best lands in the set, and actually Dash had them in both his deck, in his deck. So that was a big benefit.
And my deck also dealt with a lot of creatures. My opponent having a lot of creatures.
Yeah.
Because I can, like, put them back in my hand, make them small, kill them, whatever.
That's right. So I ended up going red and black.
And a tiny bit of white.
And white as well, actually. I went red, black, white. First pack, I pulled one of my favorite cards from the set, Rakdos, Firewheeler, and so I was, I'm going to have to go black and red, even though it probably wasn't my first choice out of the set. Anyways, I didn't actually find Rakdos was super useful for me, but because his creatures were usually tougher than that.
Yeah, you didn't really get to use it that much.
That's right. So I actually had a really nice combo with Spear Spewer, who I didn't think was going to be that great a card for me, and Theater of Horrors. So it would allow me to play my cards every turn off of Theater of Horrors.
So basically, like, you had two hands.
Yeah, it's basically I got two cards every turn. So it was I found that was a really valuable combo, and I did manage to get it. That was probably the game breaker in at least 3 games for me. Winning was that combo, if not even more. Ill-Gotten Inheritance was really good for me as well. In this kind of format, where we were both kind of playing very control. I had quite a bit to kill his creatures. He had quite a bit to take care of mine as well. So that gaining 1 life and him losing a life every turn really, first of all, it undid his Senate Courier, who was hitting me for 1 every turn, where I was able to reverse the damage.
It's basically like I was hitting myself.
And at least one game that being able to sacrifice it to deal 4 damage and gain 4 life, I think it was 1 or 2 games that was actually the game ender. 1 game, Rubble Reading, also being able to destroy a land. I was able to take out his red mana, so he had a couple cards he couldn't play, so that ended up being quite valuable added to it.
I think I only have like 3 cards in the deck.
Yeah.
Which isn't that bad.
All right. I got a Smothering Tithe. This actually wasn't 1 game. I think it was the big difference. I gave me lots of mana. Generally in this particular deck, didn't do a ton for me, but still a useful card. I had Skewer the Critics. I had Cry of the Carnarium. Now that one was really valuable for me. A couple times it took out 3 creatures, and big deal. Light Up the Stage, one of the better, probably maybe the best uncommon from this set, was really huge. Oh, I got a couple of real controlling cards. Consume was very good for me. Gave me some life and killed his biggest creature.
Yeah. Consume was awesome.
I had Mortify. It was the only thing to kill enchantments that I had. And so that was sometimes valuable, though I was usually killing creatures with it.
Yeah.
And then I see probably the big winner for me was actually the Revenge part of the Revival Revenge card. Being able to double my life and half his life was a big game changer. I mean, sometimes I was getting 19 life and he was losing 10. I think that was the 1 game. I think such a big reversal of fortune. So anyways, that ended up being a great card in our game as well. So interesting games. Very happy with how they went. So overall, I won 6 games, Dash won 5. Excellent matches. Really actually was pretty surprised and happy with how good the draft was and the interesting games we had. Sometimes I find when you do drafts, you get really kind of crappy decks and they're not interesting. We really enjoyed playing it. So Ravnica Allegiance really was happy with the draft, and I know it's a little bit old now. It's going out of cycle. But I really recommend playing it. You can usually find the boxes right now for maybe $125. That's Canadian. Maybe $80 still in the US. And I recommend it if you got some time. Everybody have a magical day.